Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for Pledge Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I could get a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. I want to welcome everybody that's here, everybody that's watching, or everybody that will be watching. I'm going to start with roll call, and I'll be voting first at this meeting. So Mike Smith here, Doug Smith?
Here.
Mike Steedman?
Here.
Mr. Coverson?
Here.
Mr. Cos?
Here.
I got this wrong. Doug came in when I was talking. I wrote it down wrong. I have to write that down. Okay, moving on to public comment. Just a reminder, we've got a few speakers. Everybody's given 3 minutes. This is the time to talk about any item you want because there won't be any discussion at the end of the meeting. And I'll start with Mac. I'm going to let you go first today.
Thank you.
3 minutes, sir. Welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome.
In December, I requested a public hearing to discuss the vaccination of healthy children that were at nearly zero statistical risk of death or serious injury due to COVID, according to all data. My school district, with the health department's support, were engaged in the Test to Stay program, which actively discriminated against students based on their vaccination status, even though vaccinated students were able to get and spread the virus. That subtle form of government coercion, camouflaged in what was sold to us as a positive program to keep kids safe, didn't make sense to me. Given that no child under 17 had died in our county in the last 2 years of COVID, what was the push to support a program that subtly coerced the vaccination of healthy children? Why subject our children to vaccination when none of them were dying and they were more likely to die of several other causes, such as riding in a car on the way to school? Why would we actively support an unlicensed medical product and experimental gene therapy with no long-term safety studies? That question remains unanswered. I came to this body because you oversee the health department and you previously voted against mandates. Rather than a hearing, you told me we'll get your questions answered. And you did, but not in the way I envisioned. I still do not know who answered the questions as there is no signature on the document. Was it the health officer? Or someone else? Was it approved by this board? I was also surprised at how evasive the responses were. To date, I have shared these responses with only a few people, but we all had similar reaction. These responses appear designed to protect the institution more so than inform the citizens of Leavenworth County. I'm disappointed in the evasiveness of multiple questions. Case in point, question number 3, the response I received was, "We're unfamiliar with the program you referenced." This is hard for me to believe because since I discussed the Test to Stay program in my email to you on 19 December, I discussed the Test to Stay program at my appearance on 22 December, and I referenced the Test to Stay program in question 1 of the same document. That said, in the 4.5 weeks that you had my questions without response, is it unreasonable to expect someone to pick up the phone or email me and just say, "Hey, Mac, what program were you referring to in question number 3, so we could get the answer? So many of my questions that I submitted on 7 January remain essentially unanswered. Commissioners, I hope that this board takes the time this morning to ask Director Miller some of those questions and other tough, candid questions that will benefit the citizens of our county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mac. April, welcome.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Morning.
Good morning. We've spent 2 years witnessing government overreach from the federal level to the local level, and I understand many of you get frustrated hearing from us, But you all took an oath to the Constitution, the same Constitution, and the very reason why we elected all of you to protect our rights under. So our individual liberties have been politicized and compromised with no explanation when we've sought answers. So why are we so divided when all the people we just want to be left alone, and we don't want to have to fight for individual liberties. We need leaders who will defend our constitutional rights, the one that you swore an oath to. We have asked questions like, if there's no state of emergency in Kansas, nor in the county, why are we masking the children? Meanwhile, no other public entity is being masked up. School boards have blamed the health officer, fingers pointed in all directions. The health officer points to you, the county health board, and by statutory definition. We also know that city government and school boards have home rule authority. We have submitted a series of questions, like Max said, to the health officer, such as what his role was providing to BOE actions, and his answer was, quote, the health department is providing guidance to school districts. SB 40 gave school boards sole operational decision-making during the state's disaster emergency. That expired on June 21st when the legislature decided not to extend the declaration, end of quote. His own words, the state of emergency expired 2021, but we still masked the students a month later from the school board. That was not a health order by the health officer. Again, if the school board ignores your recommendations, what legal recourse do you have as the health officer? His response, only health orders must be followed and are subject to the judicial system. The BOEs were afraid the health officer would shut them down or quarantine all the students. At least that is what many parents were told. Do we govern by fear, or do we have leaders who will make decisions based on the Constitution? Additionally, when we asked the health officer about KSA 65201 and asked him if there's currently an active order for concerning COVID protocols, his answer was the county is not under a health order at this time. So for those of you who don't know, KSA 65201 gives you, the Board of Health, the authority to review, amend, or revoke any order issued by the local health officer. So if we're not under a health order, nor under a state of emergency, why after 2 years are we still chasing our tails? So the general public should not get the runaround when we're asking questions or have finger pointed in every direction, especially when it comes to the children. All we ask is that you take the time to listen and respond to the concerns and address them statutorily. It's time to get back to normal. We're tired of our health being politicized, and we want to ensure history doesn't repeat itself. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott Blanging, did I pronounce that right?
I'm here.
Okay, sir.
Morning, y'all.
Morning.
Morning.
I live in Easton. I shall not speak with an Easton accent. Hi, Jim. All right, 3 topics. 3. Who is your health? I got a question for you guys. You don't have to answer, but I'll like to let everybody else know. Who's your health advisor, your real-life health advisor, to tell you on the board facts about masks, facts about vaccines, facts about the actual conflict of interest between the CDC, NIH, Big Pharma, that Veritas caught the other day, I think on 3rd of February, a CDC guy named Cole admitting that they get billions of dollars from the pharma as support for them. And you tell me that's not a conflict of interest. So let's go to masks. Number 1. I will email you, every one of you, a current study that proves they're neither effective nor ineffective. We've just gone to mask optional schools, but yet we make the kids wear a mask in school buses because someone said CDC says so. Wrong answer. That's public transportation. School buses are not public transportation. They are a private contracted entity by each school district. Therefore, Pennsylvania has gone and said, numerous counties in Pennsylvania said, masks are optional, kids. Drivers don't be masked because it's a safety hazard. South Carolina took it off, then they put it back on. But anyway, it's been challenged all over the country. I think we ought to lead in this. If we let our kids stay unmasked in school 3 feet apart, they can sit 3 feet apart on a school bus unmasked if they want to be. All right, vaccines for kids. CDC, FDA said no vaccines. Pfizer said no vaccines for kids under 5 years old. Got it right here. A board of director guy in Pfizer said that. They're not effective. They're not efficacious for kids under 5. They're not efficacious for a lot of people. If you're a teenager and you have this shot, and a boy, you stand a huge chance of developing myocarditis, pericarditis, as well as if you've had COVID. As an adult under 60 years old, you could get, what's it called, tachycardia or whatever it is, racing heart. My friend had that after he got done, because guess what? The spike protein in the shot is the same spike protein I'd get from Jeff as an unvaccinated person. And I'd give it to anybody else. Masks don't work, and they don't stop the virus. Now back to the real life things about the vaccines. These vaccines have killed over 500,000 people that they can prove in the U.S., extrapolating VIRS data. Some say as high as 1 million. Kids are dying at 12, 13 years old after the second shot. You can find that anywhere. So back to my question, who is advising you on what's really happening today with this bioweapon pandemic? And I can prove it's planned the whole 9 yards. So I don't know how much time I got left, but the bottom line is I offer you guys to be your science advisor. I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry and biology and a master's degree in systems management. I know how to research. I'm a military analyst. I know what I'm talking about, and I can prove you and give you the facts. One of the things I suggest right off the bat you do is I'll send you a Spotify link. You listen to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan and Dr. Malone, the guy that invented MNR therapy. Okay? So if I'll send you emails with my questions, those hard questions, and I'd like a solid answer, please.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thanks.
Brian, is it Stephen or Stephen? Stephen? I'm terrible with names, folks. Just bear with me. Morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm here to talk about options. Okay, the discussion about vaccines and masks and COVID mitigation and all of that, we've heard a lot about individual liberties and freedom and all of that. That's not possible without options. If we truly want individual liberties and freedom, then why not give people the option to do what they want? If they want to vaccinate, whether it's the COVID vaccine or any other vaccine, why not give them that opportunity? I shared with you in preparation for this an email that outlines a close family friend of mine who believed some of the same things that we've heard today. And shared that widely on social media, and he believed his options were limited. He believed that masks were ineffective and the vaccine was dangerous. He unfortunately contracted COVID-19 and passed away, still believing some of those facts, and he did his research. I implore you as elected officials, please allow folks to have the options. When we continue to limit options, we are not looking out for the greater good of our fellow citizens. I think that's all we want is options, whether you agree with the vaccine or masks or whatever. Having the option, limiting options, I don't think, and I've worked in government for 20 years, I've never seen limiting options as a successful solution. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Stephen. Mike.
Yeah, Mike. This isn't really time. Go ahead.
Hey, I think that we have, as a county commission and our health officer specifically, we've been the most option-open county there is in the metro. We have offered recommendations, and we have offered all the options. Our county health department has certainly been offering options on the COVID mitigation, and I just think that if anybody doesn't realize that, they need to really get on the website and look, but we're offering the options.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, Dr. Deborah.
She's not here.
She's not here? Okay. Okay, I think that's all our speakers. Mark, we'll move on to administrative business. Mark, you have anything for the board?
Commissioners, I have nothing under administrative business today.
Commissioners, y'all have anything?
Could we get an update on the comp plan? I know the Planning Commission today discussed that last week, the comp plan. Where we're at on that, and when is it going to
Commissioner,
come
I
back
really
to us?
can't speak for the Planning and Zoning Director, but the Planning Commission has conducted a public hearing on the comprehensive plan and conducted a work session at the conclusion of their session last week.
it's a work in progress is the best report I could give you at this time, but they do anticipate giving you firm recommendations possibly after next month's meeting.
Okay, so sometime in March, we'll be able to finalize the comp plan? For our yearly review, which is kind of turned into...
I believe so, Commissioner.
18-month review.
Mike, I have an update too.
Jeff?
So I have an update since you guys got a letter about flatland in Easton landfill.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we issued them a cease and desist order, and until we get a handle on what's going on out there, we're going to probably completely revamp their SUP and bring that before the planning board even. And so they're shut down temporarily. The only thing they're doing is bringing in dirt, because they're going to need some dirt to fix some of the issues.
David, do you have something on that?
Mr. Chairman, perhaps under administrative business to give you, and Commissioner Culberson gave you a good summation of the status of that. Last Thursday, we did issue a cease and desist order from bringing in any additional construction debris, quite frankly, anything other than clean fill dirt, to the Easton landfill site. Subsequent to that, in communication with Kansas Department of Health and Environment, a letter was issued by KDHE yesterday detailing to Flatland a series of violations they believe are occurring at that site, and they need to submit a remediation plan not later than March 14th. I've prepared a similar letter to be issued to Flatland by the county, and I apologize for not coming to you for prior authorization for some of those things, but it's really a matter of immediate interest. That site is substantially out of compliance, and it poses a substantial public health risk and long-term liability to the county. I wanted to let you know subsequent actions will be taken as needed and keep you advised, but sometimes the actions need to be taken rather quickly.
Absolutely. Okay. Jeff, you have anything else on that?
Nope.
So does that mean we don't have a C&D in the county right now in operation?
Commissioner, the Easton site has a cease and desist order.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That's
There
it.
is no other C&Ds operating in the county at this time that you're aware of?
Mm-mm.
I'm not aware of it.
I don't think so.
Now, will the transfer station serve as that? They'd have to pay to have it the regular tipping fee, so that would be very costly to get rid of construction debris.
If they come to Leavenworth County.
Yeah.
But
I said we should have never sold it. We should have always kept the county operating it, and then we'd have more control, and we wouldn't be sitting here without a C&D in the county right now.
Here we are. Anything else, Doug?
No, sir.
Okay. Jeff, anything else? Vicki? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Anything on the consent that needs to be pulled or discussed? If not, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Motion in a second. Any other discussion on it? I'll start the roll call. Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
Okay, formal board action. Consider a motion to approve an agreement with the City of Lansing for the Kansas-based grants.
Commissioners, you have before you an agreement after last week's work session. The board had given us direction to draft these agreements for the two entities that presented, the City of Lansing and City of Tonganoxie. I believe that the agreement you have in place for Lansing is a representation of what was discussed during that work session, and also passes muster with staff and the county councilor. I also provided you all just before the meeting with a calendar that I asked Bill Noel to put together that shows completion deadlines and what our expectation is on this project. And because it's primarily designed and it's the type of construction that can occur throughout the winter, we do feel confident that this project is one that could meet the necessary deadlines for the base grant.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agreement with Lansing for the Kansas-based grant projects.
Second. Any discussion? I think we had a good discussion last week on it. None, I'll start the roll call. Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, on to the next one. Consider a motion to approve an agreement with the City of Tonganoxie for the Kansas-based grant.
Commissioners, pretty similar to the last one. Again, this is as a result of last week's work session, and maybe I should have mentioned that we are in a very tight window here. The applications are due by the end of the month. We were only found out about them a week and a half ago, so a pretty tight window. Again, I have a calendar that I asked Mr. Knoll to put together for you all. On this particular project, I do have some concerns about the ability to complete. I don't think, I think with the construction window and the fact that we haven't even engaged an engineer for design, it's going to put some challenges here. I don't know that a decision needs to be made today, but I think before we submit the application, the Board of County Commissioners will probably need to revisit this, because the last thing we want to do is submit an application that would get awarded that we could not comply with. Then you turn money back, and that's kind of blackballs you for future applications. But I think you just got that information, so I'm not asking that you make a decision based on that today, but just to consider it before we get to
So, Mark, you're wanting them to get us some more. We have to get them back some more information so we can make sure we make the timeline.
I think if you all want to review the calendars of events that I gave to you before we make the application at the end of the month, we'll bring that back up for discussion. But for today, I think that the draft agreement is, again, it reflects what the intent of the work session was. It passes staff's review and also that of the county council.
So we need to approve this agreement then?
Yeah, then it would go to the city, and the city would need to approve it.
But before eventually, we got to make sure the timelines are made so we don't lose funding or we don't get a. Okay.
I move.
Okay.
I move that we approve the agreement with Tonganoxie for the Kansas-based grant projects.
I'll second it.
I'd like to have a little discussion on it.
Go right ahead.
Like Mr. Lawford said, I'm a little concerned about the timeline on this, and we don't want to. I don't want this to get turned down by the state, and I also don't want to receive the money and not be able to complete the project and then have to give the money back to the state. I mean, that is my concern. Either way, I have concerns, and if it does get turned down, then it's going to be dead, and we're going to be down there with a road that's not going to be adequate for the industrial part. So, with approving this, and if we do decide, or the city decides that that there's just no way that we can make this project happen, I think we still need to follow up with the design and at least have a project sitting on the shelf, because that's where we're in trouble right now, having projects sitting on the shelf to get these grants. So that's only my discussion I have. Yep.
But going back again, make sure we're clear. If the timelines aren't met that we can do it, we will not be submitting this. Today we're just approving it as the board is in support of it if the timelines can be met.
Yeah, so what you're approving now is an agreement that would allow Tonganoxie to consider that same agreement, basically a funding agreement that we intend to go forward if everything can. But before we submit it, I think we would want to come back to the board after you've had a chance to review this and the timeline that you received, and just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that we want to proceed with the application.
And we'll see this again, and we're down, when's the 28th, the deadline?
I think it is the 28th.
Oh, it is this month? Oh, okay.
So we'll be seeing this soon. Okay.
Next week.
Yep. It's a Monday.
And
It'll be next week, yeah, that's right.
Tonganoxie is that's on an agenda to discuss. Do we know if there's plans for the
For the council, next council meeting
to discuss this?
They attended last week's work session. They're part of the process, so I would assume they intend to discuss that at their next available meeting.
Okay. Just don't want
Without
approving the agreement that we have today, there is no agreement.
They have to,
Right,
yeah, there's be no
okay.
noise. Yeah,
Just
that's
make
correct.
sure.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Steben.
Go ahead, Mike.
I did hear from the mayor. They're well aware of this. I'm sure they will move expeditiously.
Okay, thank you, Mike. All right, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? I'll start the roll call. Aye, Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Steben.
Aye.
Commissioner Culberson.
Aye.
Commissioner Cos.
Hi.
All right. Glad to see these grants. Okay. Consider a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the application for the aid to local grants for the health department. Come on down, Jim.
Morning, Commissioners. In front of you is the application, this annual process for us to apply for our aid to local grants. This provides the funding that supports programs at the health department, such as family planning, MCH, immunization, teen pregnancy, things of that nature. So, again, annual request. The Commissioner has to sign this for us to present our application into the state. Deadline is March 11th.
Jamie, can you turn your microphone around? Thank you.
That's actually for the
Oh, okay, then get that one, because I don't think anybody can hear him. That's why I was.
You got 3 now, Jamie, you said.
This is like a news.
We're in.
Right ahead.
Here in a minute. So the request is for the chairman to sign this annual application.
We do this every year, right?
Yep.
We do.
Okay, Commissioners, any questions to Jamie on this?
No.
Not, I'll take a motion.
I move to approve an agreement with, or to authorize the chairman to sign the application for the aid to local grants for the health department.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on this? I'll start the roll call. Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
All right, that completes that. Moving on to presentations. It's time for the quarterly report for the EMS, EMS and Health. Nice try, Jamie. EMS and Health Department. Jamie, you're up again.
Again, welcome, Commissioners. We'll start with EMS. Presented the quarterly / yearly report to you. As you can see, numbers have started to trend back up for EMS call volume. The one thing that I always look for it's not necessarily total calls that we're going out on, but how many total patient transports we're also doing. In 2020, obviously that number was decreased in 2021. It has come back, but it has not come back yet to the level of 2018 and 2019. So again, we're not transporting as many to the hospital that we were back in 18 and 19. We are trending that now that I have a little bit more time. We're getting back into some of the numbers and some of the statistics for EMS as we move forward. We also look at, obviously, response times. That's page 3. Basically, 80% of the time we are on scene 10 minutes or less. That's pretty good for especially national average in a county the size of ours. This also entails total response within the entire, not just calls. So not every call is an emergency response. So some of those are going to take a little longer for us to respond to. Just standard report to you. The updates that I want to kind of highlight for you, paramedic students, we have 2 second-year students that will be graduating in 2022 here in this May. So they're in their last quarter, if you will, or last semester of paramedic school, and we're looking forward to them graduating in May for us and promoting up to paramedic level. And we had another employee start paramedic school in August, so he's a first year, is what we consider, in August of 2021. We do have some interest of, I believe, 1 or 2 individuals that may be starting paramedic school and taking those positions in August of this year, kind of that rotation. It takes 2 years to go through paramedic school, so it's good for us to continue that process and sending them through. It works real well for us. We did finally, in November, take possession of the 2 ambulances that came. That was also, I believe, the time that I briefed the board last time on. We're about a year out from the time we order. So we ordered our ambulance for this year, and we won't receive that ambulance until November of this year. So it keeps extending out with all the difficulties on getting products to build these trucks. So we will be monitoring that and working with our vendor. If that starts to extend out, we'll also be coming back for our once budget is kind of approved. Those are bought through capital expenditure, and that's just something that's always in our budget every year to rotate those out. I'll be coming back in front of the board to kind of advise when we need to order that next truck to be able to get that ambulance in 2023 so we don't miss a year. If we miss a year, then we know our maintenance budget goes through the roof. We have substantial issues with malfunctions and things of that nature. So new hires, our business manager had to leave for personal reasons, and we were able to promote one of my other office employees up into that position. She's doing very well. She's been in that position for about 30 days now, acclimating in. And then I have my insurance clerk retiring after 26 plus years in March, so next month. So we will be replacing that position as well here pretty quick. So we did hire 3 paramedics and 3 EMTs through loss over the last year. End of the year is kind of that time to hire. That's when schools graduate and such. They're out on rides right now and should be out in full force probably in about the next 2 weeks, released on their own. So we are at full staff with that hiring process. So good there. And the last is we started the State Board of EMS renewal process, which is an annual process as well. And that's all I have for EMS.
Very good. I'm glad you were managed to get new hires for EMS and with the people having difficulties finding people that.
It is difficult. That's why, again, we always can't open. We have the positions always open, and we're always gathering applications. But we really kind of wait until the end of the year when everyone graduates, and you grab those new hires straight out of school that are really looking. It gives you the pool to pull those through.
This is Commissioner Stevens.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, Jamie, thank you for all you do, and we really appreciate your work there. But I had a question on the wage structure. Are we competitive, or are we still losing ground, or where are we at on that?
No, Commissioner, if you remember back, I approached the board in 2020, I believe, end of 2020, and we did a restructure and a retention, kind of an EMS field pay structure for those positions, and we approved. That has helped us, I think, retain those that have left. Again, healthcare has been losing individuals, and I'll talk a little bit about that even on the public health side and hospital side. Everyone in healthcare is pretty tired. But those, it did help substantially. I looked actually the other day. We're starting to have some seniority within our ranks. We're starting to have 7-year medics. We're starting to have 8-year medics, 9-year medics. When, in quite frankly, 5 years ago, our average when I was approaching, starting to look at some retention plans, we were at like 2.8 years was is where we were losing individuals. So we're starting to retain, I think, a lot more individuals longer, just because, again, we have become competitive in the Kansas City Metro. We did those studies up against and really tried to develop a pay plan that was structured to be competitive. So it's not, if someone's leaving, it's not just for, well, I can make more money doing the same job somewhere else.
Good.
That's good, because I mean the market as far as wage market is just so in flux right now. I just wondered how that was working with you. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yep. We'll move. I presented a health department report. Again, statistics. One of the things that I want to show on there is, as you can see, in 2020, our number of clients and services were down. Obviously, we were pretty involved with COVID, and we weren't seeing as many individuals at the health department. The health department has worked extremely hard over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But this last year especially, I'm very proud of the health department out there for not only did we have to continue trying to maintain the grants as we just approved, those aid to local, we still had to see those clients and see other things at the health department that continue for Leavenworth County. And that number, as you can see, increased as I expected it to. My staff out there has just been working nonstop, and not just through COVID, but also seeing all the other clients that we have to for normal immunizations, normal MCH, normal family planning, all of the things that we need to be doing and continuing to do out there, and shifting our focus kind of back to what the health department needs to be doing. So our numbers have really increased. And then under statistics, I contacted Larry because I wanted to know kind of that October through December. I would have liked to seen even January through, but I wanted to know because our phones were really just ringing off the hook out there and things on top, especially through COVID. And one of the things that I asked them is to pull the incoming phone calls from October through December, and the average phone calls per week was 1,676 phone calls into the health department. And those that are sitting out there doing the math, that's 43 calls an hour, every hour for the 40 hours in a week. And that's on top of seeing the clients, testing, vaccines, doing all the things that we need to do out there. So the health department, was under a tremendous amount of stress through, and that just shows, again, October through December. January was just as bad. Our health department is only 14. So we have 14 individuals out there that did that. And that's pretty incredible because, again, throughout the last 2 years, I have lost 5 individuals that I've had to also replace because they were tired of the work and the workload and the overtime and things. And it also speaks high volume to, in Kansas alone, and the statistic is from December 27th, and I believe in January there was even another one lost. Out of the 150 health officers and administrators in the state of Kansas, 59 have resigned because of a lot of the pandemic and the amount of work and the pressures that have come with that. And our health department did not. We succeeded. We've done everything that we can do, again, to be doing the amount of work with only 14 people, I think, is pretty astonishing. I think that's something that needs to be commended. I'm going to say they were the busy bees. They were the ones having to answer those phone calls. They were the ones having to make some of those hard decisions on, and those are the things that I couldn't have done it without that staff. So moving along in the items to report, applying for the local grants is an annual process. We just did that. The ELC grants, we're just finishing up with the IT equipment upgrade that we received. The ELC grant for the door system was also installed. The next on the ELC grant that I will be putting together and putting in front of the board is a new EHR software, electronic health record software. Software that we're currently using is pretty antiquated. It doesn't talk to all the different modules, if you will, throughout the state. So some of these new softwares that are out there for the talk to all of those softwares. It would make our jobs a lot easier at the health department. So we're going to be doing that. The last is kind of the COVID update. As you're aware, we put out statistics on Monday, and that's really what that's for. It's just to keep public up to date on where we're at. Omicron proved to be the toughest surge since the pandemic started for the healthcare system. The amount of cases that we received over the last 2 months has been astronomical. I am pleased to say we're on a downward trend, and we have been for about the last 3 weeks. It peaked sometime between January 11th and January 21st, depending on areas and where we're looking. But we are on a significant drop. It increased significantly, and it was kind of.
It sure did.
It's really a peak if you look at it over that month and a half time frame. From about December 25th is when we saw that first incline to where we're at now. So during that, again, to prove to again what I said about my staff. We test Monday, Wednesday, and Friday out at the health department. We were testing 200 to 300 a day out there on those days through January. And those that know how cold it was, this is testing that's outside. I'm one of those testers, so I can tell you how cold it was out there trying to test when the frigid weather's out there. But we did it, and we made it through. And I'm going to tell you, testing now is significantly lower. We also know that there's a lot of at-home tests going on, tests that are coming in. So again, those numbers that we're seeing don't account for a lot of those at-home tests and how much. So we can. This is just statistics that we know. No statistic is going to be 100% because again, there's so much out there that are the unknowns. People are not, they take an at-home test, antigen test, they're positive. They stay at home, do their 5 days, and it's never reported. So it's not going to be part of these numbers. We know that. We know that those numbers are not going to be included in there. So this is really showing, though, even without those in there, look at the amount of spread that we had throughout those months and what we're going through. Vaccine, I know we have offered vaccine. We have not mandated a vaccine. We have not done any of those type of things, but we offer vaccine once a week at our health department for a clinic. It makes it very easy for us on scheduling and getting people in and out very efficiently. To date, we have given over 42,000 vaccines. That's total vaccine. That means first shot, second shot, boosters, those type of things. So that, again, is only vaccines given by the health department. I don't have numbers from Fort Leavenworth or VA or private pharmacy and such. Those numbers are reported into CDC. CDC gives us out to the general public. Anyone can go online and look at that number of what percentage total. And we're sitting right about 60% total vaccination for our county is what CDC.
Can you give the Lansing prison?
What's that?
Lansing prison. Do y'all handle that?
We did not give the state of Kansas provided vaccine out to, so our numbers don't include.
Okay.
These are strictly numbers that the health department actually gave the vaccine.
All right. Thank you.
There's been some changes with boosters and such. There's been lots of different things that have changed over the last couple months. Boosters were at 6 months. They're now at 5 months. It's 2 months post for J&J. Moderna was approved through the FDA. And then the 6 month to 4-year-old is still being evaluated through, there's been a lot of talk. It was going in front of the FDA. It was pulled from the FDA for additional studies and such. So those approvals and denials have not happened yet. It's still going in front of FDA and the ACIP and CDC. So that's some of the things on vaccine. Lots of changes have happened in the last month in regards to quarantine and isolation. It switched from the 10-day quarantines and isolations to the 5-day with the 5-day masking. Those things have happened. KDHE on January 30th of 2022 took over investigations from the local health department, so we're not doing the investigations anymore, which was a large part of the workload for my staff, having to make all those additional phone calls and such. So KDHE took that all over.
What day was that again?
I'm sorry?
What day?
January 30th
Okay.
was the last day that the health department was having to do those.
Okay.
They also, KDHE changed contact tracing and prioritized cases. Not all cases are being investigated now if they're longer than the 5-day because, again, laboratories are sometimes are delayed on getting those test results in. If it goes beyond kind of that 5-day, they're not investigating. They're not calling those individuals anymore because they're already through their isolation period. So some of that is changed as well. KDHE also advised that schools could postpone their contact tracing, and that was a 30-day and going to be reevaluated for everything that I'm hearing. That's probably going to continue as well. So that helped. I know a number of schools from some of the state to learn on what they had to, how many they were actually having to test on a daily basis. That has changed that. So there's been a lot of changes that have come over the last, even in the last 3 weeks, that we're trying to catch up on. That they're just making changes so quickly that by the time it's similar to the very beginning when we started. You make that change, and then before you can even implement that change, something else has changed again. So it's been pretty difficult. We've been again the advisory side for the majority of the last 2 years, almost 2.5 years. Leavenworth County, once we my health order that expired in 2020, there was no other health order that I put out or the board put out to Leavenworth County. Everything that has come out from us, from the health department, has tried to be recommendations and guidelines that we've had to follow. And quite frankly, that's where we've had to try to play catch up the entire time throughout this pandemic in the mitigation strategies. We haven't put out any mandates here local. I heard the question that I answered in regards to is there any, no, there are no health officer mandates currently in place from my office or the board at this point in time. So I just want to make sure that that's clear out there.
Okay.
So.
Can you restate that, please? I didn't hear it back here.
I'm sorry?
Can you restate that last statement? I didn't hear it back.
Yes, the health officer at this time does not have a written health order in place for Leavenworth County.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie.
That's all I've got.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Hey, this is Commissioner Stevens.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I had a couple questions for Mr. Miller. As far as the role of the county health department in relationship to the KDHE, FDA, CDC recommendations, when those organizations make recommendations, our health department, how do we respond to those? Do we simply follow those recommendations, or do you consult with the doctor and kind of decide if that's something that needs to be applied here, or how do we relate to those, or is it just generally whatever KDHE says, we just follow it?
Correct. If the guidelines come out from higher authority agencies that have the specialty in, especially epidemiology and those type of things, that is where we take direction from. I do speak with our medical director frequently in regards to those recommendations and guidelines, but as it transposes to, I mean, we're talking about COVID. That's what your question is referencing. Those recommendations have been coming down the pike again from CDC, KDHE evaluating and putting out those guidance, and then again even further when there's other entities that need to be involved, similar to when it went to schools and such. They put together subcommittees and such to put together those recommendations and packets that went out to those schools. That's what was put out and supported basically from the health department, that these are the recommendations and guidelines that you should be following.
So basically, when it's issued from the CDC or from the KDHE, we're basically reflecting that.
Correct.
Okay. My second question is, when there's a conflict with the science and balancing the risk, that's when we seem to have the difficulty with what those recommendations are. For example, scientific studies seem to indicate that having COVID-19 antibodies from previous exposure or illness builds a powerful immune protection, yet that's not considered when we're making the vaccine recommendations. And a second example is scientific studies indicate that those 18 and below have a lower risk of serious disease with COVID-19 and need to weigh the risks associated with vaccination, such as myocarditis, pericarditis, and sometimes those are often ignored in the push to vaccinate young people. These are two examples where science might conflict or potentially conflict with the CDC, FDA, and KDHE recommendations. But I think when I'm listening to folks, I think that's the issue they have. I don't think they have a problem with following the science, but it's when you get down to the balancing the risk, especially with the folks underneath age 18, that you're really getting there's conflicting science there. And how does the health department weigh those things?
Well, I think the biggest option there is, again, as we've heard from both sides of the fence, and I've been in the middle of this the entire time, the health department hasn't necessarily pushed. We haven't mandated a vaccine. It's available, and those that want to seek it for their loved one, their child, themselves, anything else, that's their choice. We give them all the information, the fact sheet, all the information is there. You can study all the myths, facts, everything else. It's out there on CDC's websites. It's in FDA. It depends on what you want to read and what you want to believe in the science and how you want to. What we're providing is here it is. It is available, and if you want it, this is when you can come and get it. And quite frankly, that's the stance on the vaccine the entire time. And as I said before, the health department has issued out over 42,000 doses at the health department to individuals within our county that obviously also want the vaccine. So those individuals that don't want the vaccine or don't want it for their children or don't, again, it's kind of, if you want to follow the my choice kind of scenario, that is the choice that individuals. If I want the vaccine, I should be able to also. It falls in line with what I heard earlier is options. It's the option of the individuals within our community here if they want it. Fort Leavenworth is giving it, the VA is giving it, we're giving it, pharmacies are giving it, and that's that option if you want to see it. The health department is not necessarily pushing it or making it obviously we're not making it a mandate by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, very good. Which of the vaccines are, like for young people below 18, are all of them still under conditional approval, or are they have any of them been fully approved by the FDA?
Pfizer is FDA approved through 16. Everything else down to 5 is still under EUA.
Okay, and just one more question. When we're looking at mask mandates, I know, I had a daughter, a senior at Baser, and, none of us, I think, were worried about the mask for 3 weeks to break the curve, if we can all remember back to that. But when they're asked to be masked for 2 years, my question on the masking that I don't know do we ever consider the psychological effects of long-term masking on children? Is that ever anything that even comes down from the folks at the CDC or KDHE, or is that even being looked at?
There are studies out there that are being conducted. I don't have that in front of me, Mike.
So, hey, I really just want you to know that we appreciate what you've done, and we know that it's been a very difficult 2 years, and hopefully we're coming out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We have Mark, do you have anything else for the good of the group?
No, sir.
I'll start the first one. Went to the Lower County Fire District Board meeting. Had a good meeting yesterday. And Mark, I didn't know if you was going to bring up about the Sheriff's Department now, or you're going to hold off on security.
Well, Commissioners, there's really nothing moving forward. The Sheriff has said he can continue to provide the security. We haven't had a lot of luck working with private security companies, getting the language that we need for the County Councilor to sign off on, or for, I think, anybody with any amount of, I'm not going to say common sense, I guess, but any review of it, I think by a person with some knowledge of contractual language would understand that it would not be good for us to sign some of these contracts that they've presented.
Well, it's my understanding also that the Sheriff now is advised that he's able to take control of that back and provide it, which I always preferred anyway, than going out for security. So I'm hoping that's the direction. Just my opinion. I hope that's the direction we're going.
Yeah, I'm not. Again, there's nothing going on at this point because the Sheriff has said he can continue to provide this.
Okay. Let's see. That's about it. Doug?
I think Commissioner Calls and I got JCAB tomorrow afternoon. JCAB meeting. I had Bayshore City Council last week, and I believe Mid-America Regional Council meeting next Tuesday.
Good.
That's it.
Mike?
Don't have anything to report this morning.
Thanks, Mike. Jeff?
I don't have anything other than working on the flatland issue.
Vicki?
Let's see, I did the Port Authority meeting yesterday, and then the Adult Advisory Board for Community Corrections yesterday afternoon as well, and then the Leavenworth City Commission meeting, and I'll be participating in my first transportation by phone, transit committee meeting next Wednesday, right after this meeting. KCAT, but I'm not officially, won't be on it. Nancy Bowder will still do next, but they invited me to sit and listen, and then early next week I'm going to be going for orientation.
Yeah. Very good. Sounds like a smooth transition.
Yep, I think so.
Meetings too, baby.
Yeah.
Is that all you got?
She won this week.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, Janet Klaczynski and I were going to go to Topeka tomorrow, but looks like the weather's going to get in our way for that, so
Possibility.
we'll reschedule.
Okay, Mark, you said you had nothing else? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Hey, Mike,
Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to ask the county administrator where we're at on the meeting with the city of Leavenworth. Do you need questions or items from us yet? And what are you thinking on the schedule for that?
Commissioners, like I had mentioned, we do need to have an agenda, so if you have 2 to 3 topics you would like to kind of present, then I can bring those back to the board for overall approval. I asked the city of Leavenworth the same thing, and I believe that the city manager was going to be talking to his commissioners to see what their availability was, and then work out a schedule. But again, I think the agenda is important to know going in.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mike?
Yep, I'm all done.
Okay, thank you, sir. Take a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to speak about
Sir, start at the end of the meeting. I'm sorry. Unless
Has he got public comment
is it
on non-agenda items?
is it a non-agenda item?
So there's no comments at the, it says additional public comments.
If it's on non-agenda, that's what we usually do. Did you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Is it non-agendas or agenda?
Well, it's a agenda that has to do with what Mike and this young lady over here talked about regarding the vaccine and the mask.
Again, usually we require public comment to sign up in advance, but it's obviously at the discretion of the board.
I don't mind hearing what he says.
Okay.
Okay?
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is William Bentley, and I wanted to thank the commissioners first for standing up to the governor and not requiring masks in our county. I appreciate that. I would like to correct Mr. Miller here. There is no approved, other than EUA, drugs out there for the vaccine. Pfizer has one that's been approved for the license, but the drug is not on the market yet. Anybody remember the last time we had a coronavirus? It was 2009, 2010. There were 63 million people that were affected by it, 300,000 hospitalized, and 13,000 that died from it. The CDC on August 27th, 2021, said on their website that the actual number of people that have died from the coronavirus from it was 6% of the total that they report. The others have died with it, but not from it. On the CDC website dated 2/9, between January 4th of 2020 and February 5th of 2022, there were 644 total children that had died with the coronavirus. 644. There are 53 million children in the United States between 5 and 18. That's 1/1000th of 1% that have died from the coronavirus, yet we masked our children up. And Mr. Steiben asked a very pointed question about the psychological effect. Suicide is up among teenagers, particularly young women. It's a crime what we have done to our children by masking them up when they are the least vulnerable of anybody to get and die from coronavirus. It's just unbelievable. There was a friend of mine received an email from her church putting a 5-year-old boy on their prayer roll. He had had the vaccine and had a stroke the next day. You know, and this is not reported on the news. In January of 2017, Fauci said this administration is going to experience a pandemic. He's not a prophet. He's a government employee who has, unfortunately, he's a weasel, is what in my word. He's nothing but a weasel. And he is a fearmonger who has spread the fear of the coronavirus to the American people, and many have bought off on it. When we mask our children up and take away the facial expressions from them, it's destroying them. It's time that we get back to living our lives, and we can see what the media does with people that don't agree with what they say. We can see what they're doing to the people in Canada who are just standing up for their freedom. That's all we want.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Want that motion to adjourn?
We have one, and I second it.
I'll start the roll call. Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.